Welcome to the Aftersass. This is my direct response to my new makeup release video, which I call Critical Sass. If you missed that, I will link it up here, and I will try to remember to link it down in the description box down below. There are some other links down there that I would also like you to check out. What I do in this video is I look at the things I talked about in Critical Sass, and then I look at my collection. I pull something out that I feel like is going to be the equivalent, and what it's supposed to do is to help me and help you realize that we don't always need the new thing because we probably have something that can already do it. What happens a lot of time in this video is that I don't have a full face from Critical Sass to pull over, so I won't be having direct comparisons for every piece of makeup. But I'm going to start with primer. I have found new love for this Blur powder from Sisley, and I've just been really enjoying having a reason to use it. And I'm not going to say it in every video, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. We talk about some liquid bronzers, and I don't think this is technically a liquid bronzer, at all by any means, but this is the Victoria Beckham Primer in Golden, and it's kind of coming to the end of its life. It's not behaving any different, but it's almost a year old, and I've had one of these before in the regular formula without the golden aspect, and it went off about after a year. I used it up in that time, but towards the end of that year, it was starting to be a little bit weird consistency-wise. I want to use this up this summer, so this is going to be the primer that I'm using unless I state otherwise. It's a good reminder, that makeup goes off and perhaps I should look to my makeup first and use up what I have before buying something else. I mention it all the time. We're all allowed to navigate the beauty space however we see fit. Some of us have more expendable money than other people. That's what it kind of really boils down to. There is something nice about using something up that I love. And if I were to let this primer go off, I would be really mad at myself. Not only because it's super expensive, it's my favorite primer. And the reason I wasn't using it is because it was my favorite primer. We're always feeling like we need to save the best. We need to save the good stuff. I don't want to save the good stuff. I want to use it up, even if it is expensive. And if I like it that much, it shouldn't feel like a pain for me to repurchase. We didn't talk about any foundations, but I did want to talk about this in a video because it's kind of come up in my comment section a couple of times. I've been getting a lot of compliments on my skin. And recently I got rid of a bunch of foundations that I was testing. I have a video about it where I tried to quickly review a bunch of foundation products. While I was testing all of those foundation products, I really didn't get to spend a lot of time with my favorite foundation. So this isn't an airless pump. I decanted it, but this is from Surat. It's their Dewdrop foundation. And it's, I think there's a direct correlation to getting more compliments on my skin and going back to the Surat Dewdrop foundation. It is the best foundation for me. Now, I'm not trying to be out here saying it's the best foundation for all of you. All I know is that for me, I feel like my skin looks the best. It's the foundation that when I wear it, I get the most compliments on my skin because it's people are like, whoa, what are you wearing? It looks so good. It looks so natural. It looks so just skin-like. And it's this. And that's based on my skin. It's not going to be based on everyone's skin. So I really love this. I've been so happy to be using it. I feel like it had been so entirely full for so long. And now I'm seeing some usage, which is great. I love seeing usage. That makes me really happy. I didn't mention this up top, but yeah, Maria's gone. I know I've mentioned that Maria comes and goes with emotional bouts of feeling like I lack control. That isn't really what happened. I was trimming my facial hair and I was trying to clean it up and I messed it up and it's okay. It was kind of starting to annoy me anyway. It was long enough and I don't have any facial hair balms or anything like that to hold my facial hair in place. So it's it was just kind of really wily. It was just it was kind of going everywhere and I was kind of over it. So we're back to bare, we're back to basics. So now let's move on to a product that will directly correlate to a new makeup release. In Critical Sass, I talked about refy's new concealer release. And I talked about how it has a lot of the things that I like about a complexion product. I like light to medium coverage. I'm not really a full coverage person. I liked the look of the lighter shades. They looked like they were going to be neutral enough for me. I just really liked the look of it altogether. But I did mention in Critical Sass that I don't run through concealer a lot. I'm not a person who feels like I need to have many concealers to feel like I am covering all my bases. I have 3 concealers. It's a lot if you're one person. I will say that's not a lot for most of the people that I know. I feel like a lot of people, I don't always compare my makeup collections to other creators in the space because most of them aren't choosing to try to keep their collections small as they navigate this space, which we're all welcome to do different things in this space. But I feel like there are a lot of makeup lovers that probably have more concealers than I do, and want to play with different formulas. I'm a little utilitarian in that sense. I pulled out my favorite concealer, my longtime favorite concealer, the Surat Dewdrop concealer. I wasn't expecting to fall in love with this concealer. It was gifted to me in PR, and it like actually just kind of rocked my world a bit. It's a nice thin formula, and it is highly pigmented. I think this probably has a lot more coverage than what the refy is promising just based on description alone. But I like that this sets down. It is, I would say it's a matte concealer, which I don't always love, but I think the thinness of the formula and how much of it I use every time I put it on my face, it just works really well the way I want it to. I don't put that much concealer on my face. I don't really normally bother spot concealing unless something's like really wrong. But like normally I forgo that step. So under my eyes, I don't use a lot because I don't have like bags and I don't have dark circles or anything like that. So it's just a step for me to like brighten the under eyes a little bit. It's not really a step that I feel like I need like a lot of additional coverage, which is why I think that the refy sounds really good. I am still considering buying it for the purposes of like talking about it as a content creator, but if I weren't a content creator, I would just continue using this one. But you know, if I weren't a content creator, I never would have probably tried this one, to be quite honest with you. Anyway, let's apply it. So it has has a sponge tip applicator, which I complained about so much in that video. But I'm just going to apply a little bit there. And that's it. That's all the concealer that I'm going to use. When I talk about the way I use concealer, I know it could probably sound a little bit braggy. I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with their under eyes, and I feel really, you know, thankful that I don't have things that I feel like I need to correct under my eye. But I say that because it's like the way that I use concealer might be very different than the way you use concealer and what you're looking out of it. So I always try to go out of my way when I'm talking about my favorite concealers. It's like, I'm not looking for much. I'm just looking for it not to like really settle into like the crease under my eye. And of the formulas I've tried, this is the concealer formula that I have used that does it the least. I've never found a formula that doesn't do that, like end up sitting in there. But whenever it does, it's much less noticeable than other formulas, which is why I like that. In Critical Sass, I talked about the new Makeup by Mario SoftSculpt thing that has the pump and the doe foot applicator, which I said is like an abomination of packaging. And then I called him a Libra. And then when I was fact checking whether or not he was a Libra, he in fact was a Libra, which was like pretty funny because like if you don't know me, I'm not actually that into astrology, but I know that Libras are indecisive. And I thought it was like, I would say that. And then it turned out to be true, which I thought was funny. But I don't think I could tell everyone what they're like. I don't think that's not a gift I have to be like, and your astrological sign based on my interpretation of you is like that. No, I don't normally have that. But it was just funny that I happened to be right in that situation. The whole thing about the SoftSculpt enhancer that comes in that packaging is like the doe foot can be used for like pinpointed contouring. It's going to be bronzing if you're using that. I've seen the colors be applied to people, so none of those are going to be contoury enough for me. And then the other way with the pump, you can use it as like a regular traditional bronzer. I like to do that as two different steps. I don't like to have it as one. And both, I'm going to use creams today, and for my contour I'm going to use Intuition from Ritual Defy. It's their Inner Glow cream pigment. Mine's busted, which is why it's taped shut. I use this almost every time I do my makeup, and this is if the color that I'm looking for if I'm going to use a contour. I've done a whole cream contour video if you want to know more about my contouring preferences. So what Makeup by Mario is offering is just not what I'm going to prefer if I'm gonna buy it as a contour. So you have to ask yourself, is that the kind of thing, if you're buying it as a contour step, is that a contour to you? Because to me, it's just not. I have fair skin and I have cool leaning undertones. So for me, if I'm gonna buy a bronzer, even that has to be kind of cool toned. Like, I don't really love contours that just look like straight up bronzer. I think most makeup people who are into makeup, mostly are bronzing as opposed to like using a contour. Now, it definitely depends on your undertones and the depth of your skin, what's going to look like a contour on your skin. But for me, like the bronzer just looks like I've made a choice. It doesn't look like it's natural. But you can see like whenever I put this on my face, it's just kind of very, very gently contours because it like works for my skin. It's the right depth. It's the right color, and the Makeup by Mario one just wouldn't be that. And I think the other thing that would hold me back from buying the Makeup by Mario SoftSculpt product, other than its ugly packaging, and I didn't say this in Critical Sass because I guess I wasn't really thinking of it. I actually bought the SoftSculpt Skin Enhancer, the one that comes in like the compact. I didn't get it. It wasn't really like I hated it. I just was like, this is what we're all like, because a lot of people really love it. And I was like, is this what we're really losing our minds about? Let's talk about a cream bronzer. So I'm kind of doing both of these steps as one. They're both correlated directly to the Makeup by Mario SoftSculpt product that released. This is from Chanel. It is the Healthy Glow Cream Bronzer in the shade Soleil Tan Deep. Now, I'm not here to say that this is the best cream bronzer I've ever used, but it is a product that I have. And I've had this cream bronzer for a while, and what I would rather do as opposed to buy a new liquid bronzer is to just love the cream bronzer that I already have. It's only going to be good for so long. It's already well past its like best buy date. And to me, like, appreciating this while I have it is just more important to me than buying the new Makeup by Mario. And this is kind of like the opposite of the contour I just used, but this has a really, really warm red undertone. Now, I don't really apply too much of it because it is pretty pigmented, and if I go ham, it looks like I'm trying too hard. It doesn't look super natural. But if I just pick up a little bit on this brush and I push it in. So like, I feel like a lot of times when we're looking at bronzers for people with light skin tones, it's like, it always ends up orange. So I'd rather it be red than orange if I'm going with a mainstream bronzer. But I also prefer like rosy as opposed to like red. But I do think in the summertime having that redness, which is like, if I get too much sun, I'm going to turn red before I turn tan. Like, I'm not going to turn tan. I'm just going to be, like, red. And then, like, after the redness goes away, I might be, like, a shade deeper than I currently am. But, like, it won't look like a tan. It will just be like, oh, you're the color of a person now. Instead of like, paper. Like, my skin is naturally going to get more red than it's going to get more orange. Because that's just not what my skin does whenever it gets the sun. For blush today, I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place. I haven't really decided. I'm going to powder my face now. We didn't talk about any powders. I'm going to be using my regular 3 powder regimen. So that's what I'll be doing for like the next couple of moments. When I was getting ready for this video and I was like pulling out what I wanted to use in comparison to the things I talked about in Critical Sass, what I realized is that in Critical Sass, I actually talked about mostly blushes. Like, I talked about so many blushes, which is why I like pulled out a couple blushes. I'll talk about the one I'm not using, and it's mostly because color story wise, I just don't think it's going to work on my face. So we'll start with that one. But I talked about those Lawless blushes and how they looked really desaturated in the photo, at least the photo that I saw first. And then I went to Sephora and I saw some swatches of it, and I saw some cheek swatches, and I also saw the photography on Sephora, and I realized that they weren't as desaturated as I actually thought they were, which made me not want them, which is in theory, which in the end is the goal, right? I feel like, not that I always want to talk myself out of things, but if I would have gotten into the hype and ended up buying one of those, I would have been incredibly disappointed. Like, if I would have bought it blind, like if I wouldn't have seen those swatches, if I wouldn't have like sat on it, because I used to buy makeup just like sight unseen, like I want that blush, like that's the old me would have done something like that. Like, I don't do that anymore, and I'm really glad I didn't, because I just wouldn't have been happy with them. So if you're looking for that kind of thing and you're like, you've not heard of this brand, may I recommend Phytosurgent's Toasted Blushes. So the shade Condensate is what I would recommend if you're looking for something like desaturated and kind of like yucky. This is the girl. That's if you have the same skin tone as me, but they have a bunch of shades in it, a bunch of like, and it goes deep. Like, you'll find something there no matter what your skin tone is. They have a lot to offer. But what I'm going to be using as a blush today, and relates back to Critical Sass, is the shade Ray from Chantecaille. In Critical Sass, I talked about how Chantecaille is releasing their summer collection, and they're releasing 2 blushes, and it piqued my interest because those blushes had this same embossing as this. Now, of course, my embossing is not a little worse for wear. Mine doesn't look exactly like that because I use this product and I like this product, so it's a product that gets used in my collection. I'm wondering if that formula is the same as this formula, because I really love this formula. Now, this was sold as like an all-over face product. Like, you can use it as a bronzer, you can use it as a blush, you can use it on your eyes, like you can use it for whatever. I typically use it as a blush. It's, for me, like on my skin tone, somehow, this turns into like a warm pink after a while. Like, when I first applied, I feel like it looks really orange, but then when it sits on my face, I see like these this like really warm pink come through. And it's so just like, it's so good. It's just so good. It's such a good summer shade. I've worn it as a bronzer. I don't really prefer it that way, but it is certainly something. They say it's like, it could be an all-in-one cheek product. Like, it has the properties of a bronzer because it has like, it's such an interesting shade. I'll swatch it for you, but I swear like the swatches of it and like the way it goes on my cheek and on my face are just different things. So it is meant to be like an eyeshadow, but like I know so many people who bought this and use it as bronzer. I know so many people who bought it and just use it as eyeshadow. I don't know. It is whatever you really want it to be. And to me, it's a blush. I like this formula quite a bit. I find it really super easy to work with. I was going to put on a highlighter, but I don't think we even have a highlighter to compare to another highlighter today. So I'm just going to leave it at that because, like I said, that has like a pretty glowy property to it. And I feel like my skin looks really glowy already. So let's move to the eyeshadow portion of the video. So I pulled out two different things. So in Critical Sass, I talked about the leaked golden palette from Natasha Denona. And I talked so much about the gold palette from Natasha Denona, which I already have. And it was what I was wearing in the Critical Sass video. So here it is. Here's my gold palette. I really like it. Like I said, I've gotten into this palette quite a bit. I really, really enjoy it. It's a beautiful color story and I really like it. So I also talked about and kind of ripped a new butthole the Danessa Myricks Love palette, which I had a lot of things to say, which I'm not going to really reiterate. But one of the points I made, in which we're going to follow through on today, is that if you were interested in that kind of thing and you don't already have something like that, I think buying 3 shades that you're interested in is much more worth your money as opposed to buying a full palette. Because when you handpick those shades and you're very picky about the shades that you're choosing to be like yours in that iridescent and multi-chrome style, you're gonna like love them so much more. And I speak from experience because whenever I learned about multi-chromes, I like got so excited and I bought the like whole Cliona stained glass collection at the time. Because I had so many of them all at once, I kind of had like choice fatigue and like I never like I almost like never really choose to wear them because I don't even like know most of them at this point. And if I would have just picked a few and I was really choosy about the ones that I was picking, I would have made better choices and I would probably really love the 3 or 4 that I would have chosen out rather than, I don't know, like, I think I have like, I don't know how many I have. I have so many. So we'll use one of those as like my shimmer shade today. So we'll pull the mattes from Natasha Denona and then I'll show you which shade I've chosen to put on the lid. I'm going to prime my eyes with the NARS Smudge Proof eyeshadow base. So if you're interested in the look that I'm going to be building today, like if you for some reason like it, just know that you don't need the new golden palette from Natasha Denona to achieve it. There's probably going to be things in your collection that are going to work just as well. So basically, whenever we're building out the matte part of the look, it's going to be really like yellow leaning, mustardy yellows and browns to create the transition and the outer corner like that. And that's like how I typically set up my eye. I'm going to start with this shade and I'm just going to kind of put it all over the lid to set down. This is a darker shade than I would usually use to do that, but that's okay because we'll play with the other shades. What I really think Natasha should have done when she discontinued this palette, she just should have said something like, hey, I'm going to discontinue that palette, because then what they could have done as a business, but why would a business want to help us? Like, why would they want to do that? Why would they? But like, what they could have done is just been like really gauged interest in how many people like were gonna buy it, knowing that it's gonna be discontinued, rather than it starting to sell out on websites and then people just noticing that it's not getting restocked, which is what I think happened at the time. All that really needed to be done is like just let us know, and like I think there would have been a little bit of frenzy, but it also would have made people feel like more prepared for when it happened, because I just feel like it's like no one was prepared for it to be discontinued. And then I'm gonna go into this brown right here. I don't know the shade names, and also my palette might not even be in the right order. I have moved around these shades so much when I used to be like really big into like making custom palettes, but the funny thing was when I would make custom palettes, I feel like I was basically just like moving the gold palette out of its packaging and into my like self-made palettes. It's like kind of, I feel like what happened all the time. That, and then like I would pull some shades from the like 28 pan green blue palette. Like I would also pull some shades from there, and that would be like a very big part of most of my palettes. Although I really don't wear these kinds of tones a lot anymore, but I've been thinking about the middle of the year, because we're approaching the middle of the year, Middle of the year is the end of June, not the beginning of June. So I know like we're heading into the beginning of June, and a lot of people are like, June is the middle of the year, and it like is in theory, but like not until the end of it. So I do like a mid-year declutter, and I like to put in my mind a little bit like, am I, oh, that was a refy brush. No wonder it didn't work very well. Refy sent never, God bless them, sent me they sent me more eyeshadow brushes to try. I don't have them yet, but they sure did send me more. Now I'm just using the dark brown in here. So I've been thinking about the middle of the year and like what I might want to declutter. And in my head, I think it's going to be a real brutal declutter. But I actually have decided that I am going to I'm going to go through my singles. If you watch Lauren's channel, Lauren May Beauty, she recently did a single eyeshadow declutter, and she did like she talked through some of it, but not all of it. And my declutters tend to be like, I do like full collection declutters, and I touch everything and I swatch everything. But I can't do that with my single shadows. That will take me too long. But I'm gonna do it a little bit on camera, and like you'll see things happening overhead, but it'll just have music playing. But I'll report back in with my processes. But like I think that's gonna be the brunt of the declutter. Like there's gonna be like a lot of, I don't want to say loss there, but like a lot of cuts there, because after I got rid of all of the foundations and I got to be able to come back to the Surat Dewdrop foundation, I was like, that's probably what would happen if I like really figured out my single shadows. Well, I think I've always felt like this, not pressure from you, not pressure from like people who watch my channel, but like pressure from myself to like always have so many singles and enough singles that if I want to dupe a palette, I will be able to do it. But what I really want my eyeshadow collection to be is I want it to be like eyeshadows that I like really like and would like to use, with obviously some special shades that I might not use all of the time, like some colors I might not use all the time, but like there is way too much color and stuff that I'm not using in my single shadow collection that like it has to go. And like I like bronzy shadows sometimes, but like I don't like it all the time, and I have so many bronzy eyeshadows, so it's just like I want to really narrow it down and like really get into the nitty-gritty of it all when it comes to my single shadows in a way that's gonna make sense. So I definitely want to do that. I also feel like my lipsticks, and I think I'm also going to be like pretty critical in my like cheek drawer. We'll see. And I think I might be, you know, departing with some eyeshadow palettes too. Like that's the feeling. Okay, so here are some, not all of my single eyeshadows. This is just a small sampling. And what actually this is, these are, remember when I used to do the single shadow spotlights, which I really love doing. I only have so many hours in every day, and that was just something that I couldn't always get myself to do. But what's in this palette is all the ones I had done so far. These are ones that already made it through a declutter, and then these ones up here are ones that I haven't decided on. I'm kind of between the shade Forge and the shade Smolder, which is over here, which is so funny because I'll swatch them for you. They're kind of like a similar vibe, but different flips. So this is Smolder, and then this is, no, I want Weld. I now swatched a third one. So this is Bloodline, this is Forge, and this is Smolder. But now I don't know where Weld is, and that is actually my favorite Cleona shade, so I don't know. I must have pulled it out for some, never mind. It's probably, I built some eyeshadow palettes recently, so it might actually be in one of them. But that's okay, we can make do with this. So I think Forge is going to make the most sense because I'm also going to use one of the topper shades from the Natasha Denona palette. But they all have, every time I see someone do this with the mirror, I'm like, I can't figure out how to do that. But let's try. So the mirror has to be a little bit cleaner than that. I don't know. I can't figure out how to do it, but there they are, and that's Forge. So Smolder has a green flip. I don't know if you're gonna be able to catch it on camera, but I think Forge will just make the most sense overall with what we're doing. You know, we're kind of like honoring the green and the gold palette a little bit too. And I'm just gonna take my finger to apply it all over the lid. And so this would not be like one of the shades that's in the Danessa Myricks palette because I don't think they had anything quite like this. I'm just being inspired by it. And again, I never would have bought that palette. I wouldn't have touched it with a 10-foot pole. So now I'm going to go back into the gold palette and I'm going to put some of the shade. I believe this is Kava. And that's Sparks. Well, I might put Sparks on. Well, we'll start with Kava. I'm taking a really fluffy brush and just going in there and I'm just going to put that on top. Because I tend to like more sparkle than I like the multichromes. So from Cliona, I really like their like iridescent multichromes or the multichromes like the multichrome glitters. Those are more my speed. Forge is really pretty and really cool, but I want it to be more. I'll be lining my eyes with Cocoa from Victoria Beckham, and I will be using the Surratt Releve mascara. In Critical Sass, I talked about quite a few lip oils. I talked about the one from Tarte, the one from Gisou, and I think there was another one. I talked about the lipsticks from Rabanne as well, it was not a direct correlation, but I kind of threw all of those ideas together and then kind of came up with one lip product. So I have been into lip oils recently, but it's really because one brand sent me lip oils and then they sent me more lip oils and I'm like, I have a surplus of lip oil. And they're from In Beauty. They're the glazed lip oils. And so I'll be using the shade Glazed Donut. This has some beautiful sparkle in it. So it kind of also reminded me a little bit of the Rabanne lipsticks that have the pearly sheen in it, but it's less like mermaid iridescent and just kind of more of a straightforward like champagne kind of shimmer. But in Critical Sass, I talked about how I have all these beautiful lip oils and it's like, I don't need to add more beautiful lip oils to my collection. So I'm just going to use one that I already have. Also, these also just like taste really good. Knowing what I've heard about the Gisou lip oils, I'm like thankful that these ones taste like candy, essentially. They taste like candy. Well, this one tastes like a glazed donut. So this is the final look, and I didn't need to buy any new makeup to do it. So I hope this video has encouraged you to look inside of your makeup collection. If you're excited about anything, and I recommend doing this activity at home. It doesn't have to be like, instead of this, you don't have to like do it as formally as I do it. This is just a YouTube video and to present the idea to you. But I hope you sometimes, not all the time, again, I think we all deserve a little treat sometimes, but I hope before buying things, you take a look at your makeup collection and maybe sit down and do a full face before just to quell some of the excitement, because sometimes you'll get re-excited about something that you already own instead of buying the new thing. And that's really fun because I have been actually having a lot of fun playing with the gold palette the past couple of days and I'm like, why haven't I been using you? Anyway, that wraps up the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So if you are new to my channel and you're not yet subscribed, I would love to have you subscribe. This is the kind of vibe here. It's a push, it's a pull, but mostly what I want to do is help you and help myself build the habit of just being more discerning about the makeup that we're buying, being critical of the makeup brands that are releasing all of this makeup. That's what I really like to do here. So I hope you'll join me. I am on Instagram at hautemess.tom and I have Patreon and channel memberships. They're both the same, so you can join one or the other. You don't need to join both, and you also don't need to join either. I do some additional content over there, so check that out if you're interested in it, but there's no pressure ever to join my Patreon or channel members. It's just another thing for you to do if you'd like to. But thank you to all my current channel members and patrons. You're the best. And that's it. Remember to follow your haute, and you'll find me. I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth. Tits out.